welcome back to the BizBlend podcast, the show where heart meets hustle and business meets humanity. I'm your host Sana, and today's episode is one that might just shift how you see ability, culture, and community. Well, joining me is the powerhouse Jenna Udenberg. She's a disability advocate, educator, author, and the fierce founder behind Above and Beyond with You. From being diagnosed with juvenile arthritis at age 7 to becoming a Bush Fellow and community leader, Jenna has built a life which is rooted in purpose, advocacy, and possibility. So, we'll talk about what it really means when we say disability is not a bad word, why the disability community is actually valuable and employable, and how we can challenge biases in this business world starting today. So, with that, Jenna, welcome to the show, and it is an extreme honor having you with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. So Jenna, let's get straight to disability is not a bad word. So you have described disability not as a limitation, but as a part of identity and community, which to me it's really, really powerful. So what does disability is not a bad word mean to you? I mean, how this is coming, where this is coming from, and why does that framing matter so much?
Yeah, so much of life, so much of society globally, it just sees it as this horrific experience, like the most worst imaginable life anybody could ever put on someone else or whatever, right? Like, you can turn on movies, you can turn on TV, you can read books, you can go back in our history and see how disabled community and culture have been treated in so many different cultures and countries and communities. And the reality is that every life is touched by a disability, whether it's your own personal one, whether it's a loved one, whether it's a coworker. In the United States, when 29% of the American population identify as being disabled, and yet with that negative stigma of this belief that we're less than or we don't um, we don't have as much value, we don't have as much worth. Um, that number is staggering, and as our populations grow older, we have the baby boomers coming through, and disability
Yeah.
is just a natural part of life. And it's so sad that so much of our society is based it on such a negative experience when really um, the disability community and culture is very beautiful. It's very deep, it's very rich because it represents the largest minority group in the whole world. So, disability isn't based on your socioeconomic status or your religious status or your cultural background or your ethnic background, right? Like everybody will get to experience disability in some way, shape, or form in their lifetime.
It is inevitable.
Right. And and I get that in some ways it's hard to embrace that. My disability happened when I was so young, and I'm very thankful for that because, yeah, there was hard times. Don't get me wrong. There were really traumatic medical stuff happening. There was a lot of pain. There's a lot of relational things, but reality is life is beautiful no matter what form it comes in. And the more that you can build those relationships to help you thrive and be a part of included society, like, there's nothing better for anybody.
Yeah. That is such a positive reframing. Great, great, Jenna. And let's talk about your work. I mean, you have extensively worked on accessibility. So, for businesses, what are some common misconceptions they have about accessibility, and how can they shift from this, compliance or just taking a checkbox to actual compassion?
It's a great question. I would say a lot of times people get stuck on the finances of it, right? They believe that, well, there's so few disabled people, or well, I built a ramp, but nobody comes. or I put a power door in, but this or that, or, and so it just depends on where everybody's at and their misconceptions. And I will say that, now that I'm in my 40s and not in my, teens or 20s or 30s, I have seen a lot of more positive growth come around inclusion and accessibility, but nowhere near where it needs to come. And there's still pockets of people that haven't been reached with this new education and people coming alongside. And that's the whole point of my nonprofit, is to really just embrace people where they're at, because that's how we want everybody to treat everybody, right? So if you're a business leader and you're struggling to, make ends meet or those kinds of things, a lot of times people have bought the lie that, like I said earlier, that it's going to be expensive. And a lot of times restaurants are already doing things that they did during the pandemic, right? So what did we do? We took pictures of food and we put them out on our social media. Well,
Yeah.
there's this thing called a picture menu. So all you
Yeah.
need to do is take all of the pictures that you're already putting on social media anyways, turn it into one like document so people can order by pointing to a picture instead of always needing words. And that's already done. It might have cost you, a half hour of time, depending on how tech savvy you are, right? Um, and a lot of it is the misnomer that disabled people are always at or below poverty, which a lot of my community and culture are. But, like, even in the travel industry, people with disabilities have hundreds of billions of dollars a year that they have as their buying power. And, typically, at least I can speak from my story, I am very loyal. So if I come to a place and you meet all my needs, my emotional needs, my physical needs, my medical needs, I'm gonna come back to your place every single time. So I'm gonna be a loyal customer, and I'm gonna help you be promoted to other parts of my community and culture, word of mouth, all the things. So I think just for business leaders to hear that story and hear those numbers, I hope will change it, but then more importantly, hear the story and have that heart impact to want to change.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Definitely makes sense. I think companies can really, really treat accessibility as a chance to design better for everyone.
Mhm.
For and also, when I was going through your intro, I mean, through above and beyond with you, you champion inclusive education. So, um, if you can give us a bit of a background around this, and also if you would like to share a story, maybe a moment where someone's mindset truly changed because of your work.
Yeah, education has been important to me since I was a kid. I was inspired by my middle school band director to become a music educator. I was a music educator for 19 years until the pandemic and my immunocompromisation, my hidden disability, took me out of being able to do that work. But thankfully, I had my Bush Fellowship at that time, and then I became a published author and um, really flipped my whole world into becoming an accessibility educator, because I did go through quite a identity crisis, no longer being a teacher. My kids always called me Miss U because Udenberg, as you well know, is a mouthful. So little 5-year-olds had a struggle with that. So that's where above and beyond with you comes from, at least the you part. Um, and so, as I stepped out into community leadership and started really embracing training and change and all the things for myself, I came out of some of those leadership retreats, and I remember looking in the superintendent of our school's face at one point coming off of one of our retreats, and I was pretty bold, and I just said, the same hurts and harms that my family and I faced in this same school district that I grew up in, that I was now teaching in, the current generation of families and children will not go through what me and my family went through. We will do
Mhm.
better because we need to do better and we know to do better, so we have to do better. And that was pretty bold. I just remember opening my mouth and was like, wow, I can hear my voice, but am I really saying all those very powerful words to my boss right now? And but it's true, right? Like, you can only be discriminated against and oppressed for so long, and then finally just something breaks inside of you, and it's like, "No, we we can't accept this anymore. This is not okay, and we need to do better." So, um, that's the work, and like I've shared in other spaces is I don't share any of these stories to point fingers and make people feel bad or feel horrible, but I share these stories because they're my stories and they're my power. And
Mhm.
I'm hoping that they will change, like I said earlier, the hearts and the spirits of people and the minds. Because once you get the heart, then that usually can eventually change our words, it can change our habits, and it can change the legacy that we leave. So, Above and Beyond with You works with companies, works with state and government agencies, works with small business owners, like anybody that wants to partner with us to work together to figure out where are you now? Where have you come from? And more importantly, where do you want to go and how do we support you? Right? All the same things that we as disability culture and community want to be treated as, right? So now we're kind of flipping the script and coming to everybody else and saying, how can we support you? Because everybody needs support.
Right. That is so, so right, Jenna. Okay. And now again, shifting the focus back to the companies and the employers.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, not making it obvious just for the sake of it, but how can employers go beyond just hiring a person with a disability to truly cultivating inclusive leadership and team environments? Because I mean that is the I don't know, it may sound stupid, but that is just like, okay, there's a checklist. I have to hire someone with a disability. Okay, I see this person, let's hire, and that's it. I mean, so what's your opinion on that, Jenna?
Yeah. An analogy that might help to begin is working with a local agency. They were like, oh, we built a ramp like 8 years ago. Okay, awesome. Hey, we just got power doors. So, yeah, now people can independently come into our space like 2 years ago. And then I'm sitting at a table that's not accessible, crammed in a doorway because the room isn't big enough or situated in a way that I'm not like literally the cork on the wine bottle stuck in the middle of the doorway. And then I knew because I had checked out the restroom before I had come to the meeting, and so I was just prompted to say, "Okay, so you got me in the door, and now what?" And all their jaws dropped to the ground of like, "Oh." I'm like, "So you can go and get a cup of coffee. Can I go get one?" "No." "You can go to the bathroom anytime you need to. Can I?" "No." "You can pick whatever chair you wanna sit at around this table. Can I?"
No.
"No." And so I think for employers and business leaders is like, this is a hard way of saying it because like when I
Mm.
have friends that say like, "Jenna, I don't see your wheelchair." It's like, I love you and my wheelchair is a part of me. So like I know what they mean is like they see like the essence of me or this, my spirit, my life, whatever. But
Mhm.
my chair is a part of my identity. My chair is a part of who I am. Um
Mhm.
And so, in some ways, I wanna tell employers, like, stop seeing the disability
Yep.
and start seeing the strengths that the disability has created. So, for me, I can see things 4 steps ahead because typically a
Mhm.
non-disabled person doesn't need to think about tomorrow and who's gonna help them get dressed and who's gonna cut their meat on their plate and who's gonna help them get out to their accessible van and who's gonna be at this location to make sure you get in safely or you can use the restroom. Well, I do, but a lot of times I encounter people not knowing that about my personality and about my lived experience, as then
Mhm.
they see it as like I'm trying to be a naysayer or that I'm trying to be critical of the process. And it's truly not. If you knew my heart about it, it's like I don't want us to be wasting time or money in any of these
Mhm.
things. So let's see the strengths that my disability and living with it has caused to see if we can strategize around these potential barriers ahead of time instead of waiting for 4 weeks. And then sure enough, people will be like, oh. well, I guess Jenna was right. There is this barrier up ahead that we didn't see, but she did. And I don't say that, for my own pride or my own whatever, but similar things happen. A good friend of mine, he and his partner both have autism, and we're working on a disability justice thing. And we got this whole bunch of data, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hate data spreadsheets. Like, I love to use them, but I hate the creation of them. And, that's just not my gifting, not my talent, whatever. And so it was amazing because within like 3 hours, this couple, especially the partner of my friend, was like, bam, took this huge 300-page document and turned it into the spreadsheet that like now all of us different nonprofits that deal with disability are blessed by her using her disability strength. And it's color coded and it all makes sense and it's very logically laid out. And it's like, wow, what employer would have missed out on that amazing skill set
Yeah.
because they saw them and, "Oh, they have autism, so therefore this, and this, and we're making assumptions, and we're making stereotypes, and we don't wanna deal with that because that's too much work or that's too much expense." And it's like, but this person, who's a full person, just would have saved you a week's worth of work for a non-autism person to try to do that same work. So, there's always a flip side, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ah, that definitely, definitely. I loved your analogy. Loved your analogy. Great. So, Jaya, before we wrap up, you have worn so many hats. I mean, you are an educator, a coach, columnist, founder. What lessons from the disability community do you believe the broader business world most needs to hear right now?
That is a great question, especially in where America is at in the minefield of life currently globally.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that the human spirit is resilient,
Mm.
and when we are seen and heard and valued and acted upon and acted with, the things that we can do together are immense and unlimited. So getting beyond ourselves, getting beyond the mundane, getting beyond the coulda, woulda, shoulda, or this code says this or that code says that, but literally just having the heart to heart, hardcore conversation, asking curious questions, getting rid of our biases, getting rid of our assumptions, getting rid of our labels, and just having an honest conversation that then has honest action steps and always checking in with each other.
Hmm. True, true. I mean, there's such it's a treasure of wisdom and lived experience, especially as you mentioned, when it comes to resilience, adaptability, and innovation. So I think definitely it opens so many new doors for the broader business world when we talk about it. So, with that, Jenna, if our listeners would like to connect with you and explore more about above and beyond with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can head over to our website, which is aboveandbeyondwithyou.org. And you can find us also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you can find my memoir within my spokes on Amazon or wherever you find your books.
Okay, Jenna. So I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes for listeners. And thank you so much for showing us that a disability is not disability. It's not a limitation. It is a perspective that adds depth, humanity, and value, power to every space it touches. So thank you so much once again, Jenna.
Thank you.
And to all of our listeners, the future of work must be inclusive, and that begins with language, mindset, and a willingness to listen. So, if this episode moved you, challenged you, or gave you a new perspective, please share it forward because this conversation doesn't stop here. It is just getting started. With that, this is your host, Sana, signing off from BizBlend.